Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Untrivial Podcast. My name is Allie Nelson. I hope everyone's doing well this week. I'm really excited to get into today's episode. And as I mentioned, 2026, we are all about audacity, all about experimenting. And I'm going to experiment with a new style of show again. And this one is going to be more of a story time. And the story I want to tell, I think, is really important because I think it's shaped a lot of who I am and why I am the way I am and why I think the way that I think and why I do what I do. And I just feel like it's really important to share, especially if you are someone who is feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're not in control, if you're struggling, if you feel alone, if you just want some optimism and hope and encouragement, then maybe this episode will be something that finds you at the right time. But if you've known me for more than a decade, which many of you will not, you will know that when I was 22, I was diagnosed with cancer. And it's something that really shook up my entire life, as maybe you would expect. But it's also something that I view as just like this huge, huge blessing in my life. And I know that's very kind of privileged of me to say. I know a lot of people who encounter cancer or have faced cancer do not get to say that. And it's an awful, awful thing that can happen to people. And I was lucky enough that I am in remission and I got to move on from that. So I view it for me personally as something that really changed the trajectory of my life and my thinking for the better. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of note that privilege and understand that not everyone who faces that has the same perspective. And bit of a trigger warning before we get into it. This episode will probably talk a lot about illness, mortality, alcohol abuse, honestly, eating disorder stuff. So if any of that is triggering for you, I would probably skip. But if it's not, then let's get into it. So I'm going to start this story back in 2014, which is when I was in my final year of university. And this was the year before I got diagnosed. So I was 21. I was very much a work hard, play hard kind of mentality when I was in school. I studied really hard. I did really well, but I also went out a lot. And I just want to set this stage because I don't think my habits in terms of self-care and looking after my body and my relationship with alcohol was very positive at the time. And I think it's important to note because I don't think I really knew how to look after myself well at that time. And I was finishing up a year that was really hard, just academically, relationally. Like there were a lot of challenges in my fourth year, and graduating was something that felt super bittersweet to me. Like I was excited to step into the real world and get a like big girl job and, all of that stuff. But I was also really sad to leave this like university bubble that I had out on that campus. Like I went to Western and it very much is a university town. So it's kind of like you wake up in your house that you share with a friend or a couple of roommates, you walk down the street, you see friends, you go to class, like the entire community is students and people you know. And that was like an environment I just really, really loved and appreciated. And every time you went out, you would see people you knew. And I'm like a very social person. So anyway, I was scared to leave that. I moved to Toronto, which is a much bigger city. It's not a university town, even though there are lots of schools there. And I was actually moving at a time where not a lot of my close friends were moving to the city at the same time. And so I moved in with a girl I didn't know who is now one of my best friends. But at the time, she was brand new. I got a job that was my first kind of real job in the HR space, which was what I got my major in. So I was excited, but everything felt like such a huge change and I felt really isolated in that switch. And the job structure was like mostly commission. And some people really thrive with commission-based structures. I don't. I find them to be really stressful and like financial pressure just like doesn't mix well with my nervous system personally. And so I was like killing myself trying to just like prove that I could do it and that I was motivated and could do really well like in this role. Even though the role itself and the structure of it was giving me a huge amount of anxiety. Anyways, I was single. I was working at this job that was proving to be really hard on me. My anxiety was mounting. I was feeling really isolated. And I think it's something that is really confronting to people when they switch environments like that. And, you know, it's not as easy to make friends. It's not as easy to know like where to go out and like where people like you will be. And it just like was a time where I felt really, really lost. And I was kind of holding on to this job as like my anchor, but it was also this thing that was like really impacting my mental health in like quite a negative way. And, I was in it for 6 months before it got to the point where I was like not wanting to get up and go to work. And I was like crying before going to work. And I would call my mom and be like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I need to be there for a year. It was kind of like, back in the day, it was unheard of that you would stay at a job less than a year. Like I literally committed in my head mentally when I took that job that I would be there for 3 years. And 6 months in, I'm like already not doing okay. So I was just like really trying to like soldier through, but it wasn't working. And it really started to impact my like mind and body. And so I was feeling really anxious. I was getting sick all the time. I felt this like loss of control, which actually led to me starting to like purge as it related to eating. And like, I just felt totally, totally, totally lost and like not myself and completely out of control. And I went to go get a massage one day because I was just feeling so stressed. And I had told the masseuse that like I had this lump in my neck that wasn't going away. I thought it was just like a swollen lymph node because again, that happens when you get sick. And I had this like wheezing in my chest and she was like, I would go to the doctor if I were you. And she had this look of concern on her face that kind of scared me. And I was like, you know what? I haven't been feeling great for a while and like things have started to spiral and get really bad. And like, I think I just need to tell my mom what's going on. And she kind of knew things were tough, but like not to the extent as to what was going on. And so I finally told her just like, these are all the things that are happening. This is what I feel like. This is where my mental health is at. And she was like, okay. But the bigger, like scarier thing was like, what's going on with my body? Like I'm out of breath all the time. My lymph nodes are swollen and they're not going down. Like I don't know what to do. And so I think that conversation with my mom kind of prompted her to be like, we need to just like get you fully checked out head to toe, like tomorrow. Like I'm really worried about you and like, let's just do that. And so we booked an appointment at MedCan, which is kind of like this private health clinic downtown. It's really bougie, but we were like stressed and wanted immediate answers. And they do this whole kind of like head to toe check of you. They check your heart, they do x-rays, they like literally anything you could think of as like a medical test, they'll do it. And then you'll get results really, really soon. And so I did that. I was feeling better that I got things checked out. And then I kind of went back to work just like waiting for the results. And then a couple of days later, the doctor called me and said, we found a tumor in your chest and it could be a couple things, like one of which it could be, a hematoma, which I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's non-cancerous. The other one is like a teratoma, which is like this very creepy looking thing, but again, benign, not cancerous. And the third option is that it's cancerous. And I remember being like, well, what do you think it is? And he said, it's likely cancer, but we won't know until we have a biopsy. And so I was like, oh, I like likely have cancer. But it was one of those things where you hear that word, but it's not confirmed. But he sounded pretty sure. So it still like just knocked me off my feet. And I like really didn't know how to handle that. I started crying immediately. I left work. I told him I had to go. I told him what had happened. And they were like, just take the day, go sort yourself out. Called my mom, told her what happened. And then we went to go book the biopsy for like a couple of days later. And yeah, like it was really scary. And I'm the type of person where like if I have a lot of feelings and emotions, like I need to journal, like I need to get them out somehow in a way that like can make sense, that I can like put down on paper. And I just remember like going home and like furiously journaling and freaking out about like what that could mean for me. And I was 22, like I was terrified because I was so young. But eventually, yeah, they do more pictures. They tell me the tumor is the size. I think the measurements were like 11 centimeters by 14 centimeters by 8 centimeters. If you think about it as like a 3D object, which is humongous. Like if you look at my chest, it's like no wonder I couldn't breathe. Like my entire lung on my right side was like completely taken over by this tumor in my chest. It was like pushing on the lung so that I couldn't get air out of it. And it was coming up into a part of my neck, which is where that lump was that wasn't going away. And so I got the biopsy done. It comes back, it's cancer. And yeah, I remember feeling like, no way. Like, I can't believe it. I'm 22. Like, what 22-year-old has cancer? Like, it just didn't feel possible and real and like something I was ready to take on. But it also just like, honestly, like felt like this huge stop. It just stopped everything. And in a way, I really, really needed that. Like, I needed to leave that job. I needed to stop just like going through the motions. I needed to stop not looking after myself, not looking after my physical or mental health. And so, pretty quickly, to be honest, I kind of reframed it as like, this is a sign that you need to like figure your shit out, Allie, or else you're just going down a really awful road. So that's what happened. And if anyone's gone through difficult diagnoses, they'll know that there's like this waiting period. And it's like the period between knowing you have something bad, but not knowing what the course of action is yet. And it's like the doctors, you need to be referred to an oncologist, and then they need to do their own testing, and then they need to talk to you, and then they need to devise a plan. And is it going to be surgery or chemo or radiation? Is there any prep you need to do before that? Like, there's a lot of questions that you just unfortunately don't have answers to, and you kind of just have to wait to get answered by the professionals. And that for me was the absolute worst part, because it's like, I know something's wrong and we're not doing anything to fix it yet. And like that gave me the most anxiety, because I was like, oh my God, it's getting worse. I don't know what to do. I need this to be solved and like for it to go away as soon as possible. And so there was about a month, I think, a month and a half, where it was just like waiting and seeing and getting a plan together and getting a team together and all of that, where that eventually happened. But that was probably like the most brutal time. And I was kind of like telling my close friends, and, when people have questions or like they're worried and like you don't really have anything to tell them that's good news yet, or like that you're going to get it sorted and this is what the plan looks like. So there was just a lot of worry and a lot of just like unsettled energy with like my family and myself and my friends during that time. But then once they did devise the plan, that's when it started to feel okay. And it was like, we're going to do, I forget how many rounds of chemo, like 12 rounds of chemo, like 1 round every 2 weeks. And then like 30 rounds of radiation or something like that. It was like a lot of radiation. It was every day. So there was just a lot ahead of me. And I thought it could be something easier. Like, I would much rather a surgery to go under, get it chopped out and have it go away. But that's not the way that this cancer works. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer, and it kind of like takes over your lymphatic system. So it can spread to the lymph nodes and things like that. I think I had stage 2 or 3. Don't remember. Maybe it was 2. Stage 2. And the way that cancer shrinks and goes away is through chemo and radiation. And, my only understanding of cancer very privileged perspective was like, I didn't know anyone in my life who had had cancer before me. Like none of my family members had had cancer. No one I knew personally had had cancer. So like my only understanding of cancer was like the movie 50/50 or like the movie My Sister's Keeper. And I was just like, what do I do? And like, does it look like this? And is this what my life is going to be like? And so I was kind of just preparing for the absolute worst. And I think that's something that's good to do in a way, because it's like you don't want to be surprised by terrible news or like the worst case scenario, but you also don't want to go there too early if you don't have to. And it's funny. It's like you hear the word cancer and someone who hasn't been affected by it deeply will think it's like horrible, horrible. But then when you have cancer, you realize there's like levels, you know what I mean? Like Hodgkin's lymphoma is very, very curable. It's like the survival rate is extremely high for Hodgkin's lymphoma, whereas like pancreatic cancer, for example, it's like scary low, like terrifyingly low. And so talking to the doctors kind of grounds you a little bit in that like this is like very, very treatable. Like chemo usually responds really well to this. You know, like we're going to do the best we can, but we see a really high kind of survival rate post 5 years kind of thing. And so, you know, that kind of messaging does help, but it is still the word cancer. And as someone who didn't really know anything about it, it was totally terrifying. And then I asked, you know, because there's all different kinds of chemo, there's all different kinds of things like, will I lose my hair? The answer was yes. And like, will I be sick? They were like, it depends how you tolerate the anti-nausea drugs. And so I kind of just had this picture and oh God, it's kind of like you're looking over a huge cliff and like, you know that it's like terrifying and scary, but like you're hoping you'll like land in the water and there's no rocks under the water, but you know you have to jump. Like that's kind of what it feels like starting something like that where you're like, okay, I'm going to like go through chemo, I'm going to lose my hair, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose everything that kind of stabilizes me, and I'm going to like hope all is well on the other side of it. Like let's see. And that's what it felt like. And so what that meant for me was, I quit my job because I couldn't work and go through that. I did end up keeping like my roommate's situation in my apartment in Toronto because I really didn't want to move home and feel like I had lost that sense of independence. I was very lucky that I had a lot of close friends kind of rally around me and like want to be there for me during that time, which I'm just like still so forever grateful for. And it was kind of just like, okay, we're gonna do this and see how it goes. And so chemo started and it was very scary. I got like a PICC line, which if you don't know what that is, it's like they put this kind of tube in your arm so that when you get administered the drugs, it doesn't cause a lot of nerve damage. Like if they were to do it in your hands or your wrist, the chemo, I think it's such a intense drug that it can really like screw up your hands. So they try and put it in a different part of your arm that won't get as damaged. And I didn't feel anything at first. The anti-nausea medication is super powerful. And so for me, I didn't get really sick. I think I was only sick like 1 or 2 times, which over the course of like a year is pretty good. And the other funny thing about the anti-nausea drugs are that they keep you awake. Like they are like for me, it was like I had like 10 Red Bulls. Like I could not sleep. I couldn't sleep at night. And I would just want to like clean or write or think. And like the crazy thing about it was like you just had all this time alone with your thoughts, which for some people is like not what you want. But for me, it was really clarifying. And so like at night, I would just start like writing and journaling about all my feelings. And you kind of have a similar amount of alone time during the day because like all my friends had jobs. And so I was kind of like by myself. Luckily it was summertime, so I could go for walks along like the water and like go to a cafe if I wanted to. But, you know, it was also kind of metered with how well I was feeling and how much energy I had, because it does like zap the life out of you at the same time. Like I just remember being so tired and wanting to sleep a few days after getting chemo. But once you get to like kind of the second week, I felt a lot better, and I could like, see people or have a bit more energy to walk around. I was very grateful. I actually had a friend visiting from Australia at the time, and he was there for like a month, I think. And we had originally planned it before I knew I was sick. But he came anyway, and we ended up doing a lot of fun things. Like we went to Montreal, and like I was kind of being tour guide. So we like went up to the CN Tower and like did a lot of touristy fun stuff, which actually really helped me like take my mind off things. And so I'm really grateful for that distraction and that time because it made it a little bit easier in the early days. But yeah, I think a lot of the time alone writing actually helped me reframe so much of what that experience meant. And you know, a couple weeks into it, I was like, "Wait, I'm like really lucky if we think about it." And my mom would be like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm 22. Like I just graduated, meaning I didn't have cancer at a time that would have jeopardized or hindered my college university experience. I don't have it later where I'm like married or have kids and like imagine going through that and having children to look after. Like, I'm kind of in this spot where I'm not looking after aging parents yet. I'm not looking after my own kids. I'm old enough that I'm out of school and out of these really, really like critical periods that, mean a lot to complete. I'm kind of just hovering in this 20s zone where the whole decade is kind of about trying and failing and figuring things out anyway. And so there was part of me that felt really, really lucky that this was when it happened. If it was going to happen, I'm really grateful that it happened at that time in my life because it really allowed me to slow down, but also didn't have an impact on like a lot of other people, if that makes sense. Like obviously it impacted my family and my friends, like to know that I'm going through it, but it didn't impact their care or my child because I didn't have one. So like there was a lot of good things I felt about that timing. And then, I'm kind of like a toxically positive person with myself. So I was like, okay, like what are all the good things about having cancer? Like what are the best things that are going to come out of this? And it ranged from like this list ranged from everything from like, oh my God, I don't have to shave my legs anymore. How convenient is that? To like, oh, I really get to stop and think about what I want my future to look like and what job I want to have and where I want to live and like all of these things that get really like deep and meaningful. But, when you're kind of forced to face a situation that like on its face sucks, I really feel like there's only like two things you can do. You can either like let that swallow you and have your mental health kind of go down with it, or you can try and find the silver linings if there are any, and if there aren't, you kind of make them up or you force them to be there, because I'm sure that there is one. And the one that always anchored me was like, well, at least I'm not dead. Like at least I'm still alive, at least I'm still fighting, at least I'm still going through it, and I'm still here. And that's better than dying. So at least I have that. And for me, like that, at least, like those words were always the thing that I was holding on to like keep me grateful and grounded that like this is not all bad, or like this is not the worst thing that you could be going through right now. And you should be grateful for the fact that it's not. You know what I mean? And so I still really like think about that a lot. It's like, how many things can you be grateful for? Like how many things can you recognize, even if what you're going through is really hard? Like what's harder than it that you're not going through? Because I think we always compare ourselves to people who have it better than us. We're always looking up and it's like, well, they have this, or like they're not going through this. And it's like, if you took 1 second to compare your life to people who have it worse than you would find so much more to be grateful for about your own life that you probably ignore like almost every day right now. And that's no one's fault. It's human nature to always want to be striving and looking up and progressing and like, not looking back. But I think gratitude is one of those things that just like really grounded me during that time and still grounds me a lot of the time today. Like just remembering that there are so many people who would like die to trade places with me, and not getting stuck in like the little things. And this isn't to say like, oh, because I went through this, like I am an authority on like what you can and can't be upset about. Like quite the opposite. I really feel like going through this made me realize like everyone's going through something hard, and like that hard can look different. And depending on what you've experienced in this life, like your hard might feel equivalent to like what I'm feeling, and it might look different. And there's no use or point in comparing struggles to each other's struggles. Like I think that's so stupid. It's like, let's just all have compassion and understanding for each other, no matter what you're facing and no matter what you're going through, if it's difficult, if it impacts you. Because like a lot of my friends, when I was going through it, I'd be like, oh, like what's going on? Like, and they'd be like, well, they'd always preface it with like, well, nothing compared to what you're going through, but this annoying thing. And I'm like, girl, like you don't have to say that. Like you can just be upset. You can be annoyed. Like we don't have to rank anything here. It's okay. But anyways, about, I don't know, a few weeks, a month into treatment, I started losing my hair, and that was very confronting and unsettling. I'm someone who's always had long hair. My hair has probably always been like this long or a little bit longer, if you can see on video, but it's like just like past my chest. And losing it, especially as like a quite a like feminine person and like someone who really cares a lot about beauty, and like I cared a lot about my appearance and like just like the vanity side of things. I mean, I was a 22-year-old girl. That was really, really hard at first. And my friend got this idea that we would have like a party just to like shave my head. And it was kind of like a shave rave is what we called it. My friend hosted it, and a bunch of my friends came and just brought like scarves and, just nice things. But it was just meant to be this moment that felt more empowering than defeating, I guess. And like taking ownership over that. And it was like, I'm going to look like Ruby Rose, and, I'm going to kind of rock this look, and, kind of has to be what you make it and what you define it as rather than it defining you. So that happened. And once it's shaved, you kind of like, it slowly turns to like bald after more and more treatments, but it's basically gone. And like I got a wig. Also, pro tip, if you are getting a wig for whatever reason, please get a lace front wig with human hair if you can. I didn't get a lace front. Again, this was like earlier days. Like the wigs weren't popular the way they're popular now. I did not get a lace front, and I totally regret it because it did not look natural the way lace fronts do. But yeah, I ended up getting a wig that I would wear occasionally. But most of the time I just wanted to like have a hat on or something because it was kind of a pain in the ass to like wear them, and they're really hot. But I had a couple different ones, and that was kind of fun to play around with. But yeah, I think that too, just like the physical side of getting cancer was something that I also really had to wrestle with, because it's like, oh my gosh, this big piece of what I put my value and my worth to, which was my appearance, is no longer what I want it to be. Like I gained a bunch of weight. I was on a bunch of steroids at one point. Like I lost all my hair, my eyebrows. Like I did not look like me. I didn't recognize myself when I looked in the mirror. And people do treat you differently, whether you like it or not. They do treat you differently depending on your appearance. And it was something I like felt and experienced firsthand, because it's like, up until that point, I was moving through the world looking a certain way. And then I gain all this weight, I lose all my hair, I kind of, don't look the same. And people don't make eye contact with you the same way. They don't treat you the same way. And that was very confronting too, to really understand that the world really does treat you differently depending on your appearance. And like, while it does seem vain, like caring about it impacts your day-to-day life. And it's not that I'm saying like it doesn't matter. It's just that yes, it can impact the way people treat you, but it should have no bearing on how you hold yourself and love yourself and appreciate yourself. And so, I had to really sit with and be with the fact that like I am so much more than what I look like, and what I look like is external. It's only skin deep. Everything about me is about who I am and my values and what I care about and my friendships and my family and like my passions. Like that's who I am. That's what matters. And going through that was the first time like, wow, like hair and makeup and clothes, it's like, I think I said something like, it's like icing a cake that doesn't really need icing. But if you want to do it, icing's delicious. Like do it. Like wear the sexy clothes and do your hair and get the extensions and do the lashes. Like whatever you want to do to make yourself feel beautiful, go for it. But it should not impact how you feel about yourself and your worthiness as a human. So that was another great lesson that I learned that I honestly don't know if I would have learned the same way if that didn't happen to me. Like, I think there really are only certain things you get to learn and know once you've experienced a different perspective or a different experience. And I don't think I would have experienced the world that way or thought about beauty that way if that didn't happen. So again, it's like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that my eyes were opened up to that I started to really value a lot more about who I am and put less emphasis on what I look like. And like, what a gift that was for me, especially at that age where, all you care about is kind of like fitting in and looking pretty and getting attention and dating and things like that. So anyways, I did 12 rounds of chemo. I think about 3/4 of the way through, I started reacting negatively to the chemo. It started screwing up my lungs. And there was a point in time where I like couldn't breathe. Like they call it lung toxicity. And so there's like this, oh my God, I don't remember. Something starts impeding your ability to inhale oxygen in your lungs. So it literally feels like you're like gasping for air, like you can't breathe. And so I had to go to the hospital. I spent like 5 days in the hospital over Labor Day and like getting that under control. And then they had to like switch up my chemo drugs to make sure that didn't happen again. But that was the first time too in the hospital when I couldn't breathe. I really felt like incredibly unwell. And I know that wasn't the norm for the most of my experience, but like I got a taste of what life would be like if you didn't have enough energy to like stand up in the shower to take a shower, or like walk by yourself to the bathroom, or get out of bed for more than like 5 minutes. And like that was also very terrifying because I was like, wow, like again, I'm going through something hard and it is nothing compared to like what a life with those limitations could look like. And like opening up all this compassion again for these people who have these different experiences that are really hard in different ways. And like, if you're someone who struggles with chronic illness and things like that, like my heart just goes out to you because that is so difficult to live with something that impacts you every single day. Like cancer, if you survive it and, there's no complications, you go back to feeling like you. At least I went back to feeling like me. People with chronic illnesses don't have that luxury. They don't have that. And like, as much as I say, like, there's no competition here in terms of struggle, you can realize like what you're grateful for about your situation and what you aren't grateful for, and what you'd be grateful for in another person's situation, what they might not be grateful for. And it's like, we don't get to pick and choose. And there's bad that comes with the good in all of these situations, and just be grateful for the good that you have and the bad that you don't have. Yeah, and throughout my treatment, I was getting updates from my oncologist team that like it was shrinking, it was getting better, things were improving. So I always felt like I was on the right path. But I think the biggest thing for me and what helped me with my mindset of just like, day to day, I felt pretty optimistic, pretty good, pretty happy throughout the entire process, was that you kind of just have to surrender strategically. And what I mean by like a strategic surrender is, it's kind of cliche, but it's like you need to know the things you can control and know the things you can't control. And you need to manage carefully the things you can control, like your mindset and the habits that you might have that make you feel better, and recognize the things you can't control and kind of just radically accept them. And it's like, I have cancer. I have to radically accept that. I have to go through this treatment plan. It's gonna not be great, but I have journaling. I have days free where I can walk around. I have my friends. I can call my family. Like, you need to just get really clear on what's in your control. And also, like, I'm someone who's a planner, and it's like, okay, you can plan for all the scenarios. And so when you cross that bridge, you've kind of already pre-accepted or pre-calculated what you're going to do or what that's going to mean for you. And like, once you've done that, once you've done all the kind of plan A, B, C, you kind of have to let go and just see which direction unfolds. And when it does unfold, you'll know what to do. But like, there is this huge degree of like accepting that you don't have control over things, but still being able to recognize and care deeply about the little snippets that you do have control over. And it's so funny. I was like joking, but not joking with my friend a few weeks ago because we were just talking about motherhood, because obviously that's the transition I'm going through right now. And I told her there's a lot of similarities between early motherhood and cancer. And before you go like, what the hell are you talking about, Allie? Let me explain. With cancer, you are likely, depending on severity, are kind of forced to quit your job or step away from the workforce. You will likely see your friends less because they've got jobs and things like that. You will likely not be able to do the same hobbies or activities you used to do, depending on your energy and your health. You will likely not be sleeping well or feeling physically healthy and rested the way you did before. You will be entering completely uncharted territory that will consume most of your waking hours in terms of thought with regards to chemo appointments, medicine, just the looming fact that you have cancer. Like, think about that. And then think about motherhood. You step away from work. You are isolated from your friends more so than you were before in most cases. You are in an all-consuming new role, caring for this little baby that you have no idea what you're doing with. You are not sleeping because you're nursing or waking up with a teething baby or a crying baby. And you just need to radically accept that this is like your new way of living right now. And I just think there's so many similarities in terms of the mindset and acceptance and grit that you need to cultivate in both of those scenarios to withstand and get through and kind of move through it in a productive and positive way, because like it can swallow you if you don't. Both of those scenarios can. And so like, it sounds like a joke, but it does really feel kind of similar in terms of like identity disruption and life disruption of like, there was a you before and there's this you now that's totally different. And all the scaffolding that you used to hold on to that would stabilize your understanding of who you are, what you care about, your life is kind of gone at the moment. And like, there was this whole reevaluation of like, what is my life? And like, what do I want to do? And life is actually really short and you could die tomorrow, not even from cancer. You could literally get hit by a car tomorrow. Like it could be over at any point in time. And it's not guaranteed, but we all don't want to confront that fact. And yeah, I'm moving away from the motherhood thing now because I want to talk about this. But it's like, I don't say that to scare anyone. I say that because I feel like that should embolden people. If you don't know how many more days you have, what the fuck are you doing wasting your time? Like, do you want to get to the end of your life thinking, I didn't take that chance. I didn't try. I was too scared. I was too nervous. The end of your life could be a week from now. So those chances and those opportunities that you're scared about right now, those are the ones you should be taking, and not, with no regard to risk, but like to the point where if you were on your deathbed or if you were in your last hours and you could think, do I have any regrets? I wouldn't want to regret not doing things and not taking chances and not being as honest and open and authentic and bold as I wanted to be. And so I really hope, like, when people think about, oh, you could die at any point, it like lights a fire versus makes people want to withdraw and be scared. Because it's like, don't you want to leave all your cards on the table? Like, don't you want to be like, yeah, and I said what I said and I did what I did and I have no regrets and I'm glad that I took all the chances that I took. And it's true. Like, I think there was a study where they were talking about end of life regrets, and it's very common, people say, but it's most people regret the things they didn't do versus the things they did do. And so all those chances you're not taking, all of those decisions you are too scared to make that feel too bold or too cringy or too risky, like those are more likely to cause regret than trying and failing, or like trying and fucking it up, or like asking the girl out and she says no. Like those aren't going to make you feel as much regret as you not doing it. So do it. Do it. Take this as your sign. Do the thing. Yeah, I think there are just certain situations in life that make you confront mortality more than others. And cancer or illness is one of them. A near-death experience might be one of them. Entering parenthood might be one of them, because you think about legacy and like your children and things like that. Like there's probably a lot, but I'm just so grateful I had it because, and at such a young age, because I still have so much runway to live life with that new lesson in mind. And it's like, I do this podcast because of that. I applied to school because of that. I moved to Australia because of that. Like there's so many decisions that I've made now because it's like, I don't want to live with any regrets, and I want to be proud of the person who at the end of their life can say, I did all those things I said in my mind I wanted to do. Like I actually executed. It didn't just live in my head as a dream. And like, I just want to always, always make decisions that are aligned with that person. The one in my head who's saying, I really want to do that, fucking do it. And even with friends, it's like, I always tell my friends I love them. I always tell my family I love them. I never want to go a day not telling the people that I love them, because again, you just never know when that last conversation is. You never know. Like life is just so uncertain. There's so much mystery, and that's part of the beauty and that's part of the great thing. But it's like, oh, like I just feel so called now to like never leave things unsaid, to never skirt around something. Like I always try and be really direct and really honest. And I think so much of that is informed by like just wanting to leave it all on the table and like wanting to be understood and known for what I truly feel, and not like some misinterpretation or some mask or some fake facade, because it's just like not real, Anyways, I digress. I finished chemo after my 12 rounds, and then I went into radiation, and that was like an every weekday situation, 20 million times better than chemo in my opinion. Like some people say you feel tired. I felt nowhere near as tired as when I was doing chemo. And it was like, I don't know, like a 20-minute experience every day. It was quick. You're in and out. You go home, you rest. Like I felt way better doing that. And then after that, I finished right at the end of 2015, like December 2015, right near Christmas. And that was it. I was in remission. I was done my treatment. Everything looked good, and knock on wood, still is good. But it was like a really, it ended up being like, I don't know, like 8 months in total, 9 months in total. But it was just like such a transformative 9 months of like going from diagnosed to finished treatment, that just crazy. Like I feel like I lived 10 lives in the span of that time. And after that year, I didn't go back to that job. I moved out of my apartment. I went and traveled. I visited my family in the States for a few months, and then I moved to Australia for a year because I was like, I've always wanted to live there. This is the time in my life where I literally have nothing keeping me. Like, I don't have a job. I don't have an apartment. Might as well go now while I'm young and go on a working holiday visa. And I had the absolute best time of my life. And after that, moved back and started to settle back in because I wanted to be close to family. Started my own family, and like, who's to say what's next? I think both my husband and I want to move again for at least a handful of years to get away from winter for a while because it's not my favorite season. And just like do new adventures because it's that conversation around what's on your bucket list and when can you do it and like how do you actually follow through? And yeah, thinking about how cancer just like changed my mindset around action. It also changed my mindset hugely around my body and my health and my wellness. Like, I barely touch alcohol now, do not touch drugs, do not touch really anything that I think is going to be bad for me. I went vegan for a while afterwards just to really focus on like health, I guess. And now I eat meat again because I actually do find it healthier for my body and my well-being. But like, there is such a different relationship to drinking, partying, authenticity, beauty, like any way you think you could be fundamentally changed in terms of how you think about something, cancer did it. And if I could just like impart any lessons without you having to go through that, then I would love to, because it's like, it was so transformative in the best ways. And it just made me so grateful, so present, so ambitious and determined to like do the things I want to do in this life, knowing that we only have one and we don't know when it ends. But if you are someone who's in that stuck place or that loss of control place, my advice to you is when you're ready, and don't let anyone do it for you, but when you are ready, try to find a single sliver of a silver lining. Try to find something to be grateful for. I know it probably fucking sucks, but if there's anything that you can hold on to that makes you feel a little bit anchored in gratitude, I hope you can. Maybe that's not right away. I think leaning into and surrendering to not being in control when you can't be in control is going to just free your mind mentally from trying to stop things or start things that aren't going to listen to you, and just being mindful of what is within your power. And if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling nervous, I hope that there's a call to action here for you to just go out on a limb and try a little bit and love yourself for who you are underneath, no matter what you look like, no matter how long your hair is or how much makeup you have on. And tell everyone that you love them all the time, on the phone, via text, in person. Tell everyone that you love them. And if you are someone who is in the throes of illness, cancer, someone you know going through it, oh God, just hold on to the good moments when they're there and try and be as present as you can. And if you're supporting someone going through it, just the little ways you can bring them joy, the little ways you can be with them, be with them. And if you are going through it, just hold on. Keep fighting. Keep smiling if you can. And you're not alone. Whew. I hope this message, this story was helpful or insightful. You know a little bit more about me. You've got a little bit of advice. But I hope you have a great day ahead, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.